Hello, everybody. This is Shannon Brody, and we are going to go ahead and get started. Just a few reminders. There's quite a few people on the phone, so I've muted everyone's telephones just because there's background noise that happens and distractions, so it's better to keep everyone muted. This is a live webinar, though. I'm actually here talking to you live time, so if you have a question, you can type it into the chat log. Or you can just ask me to unmute your phone, and I'll unmute your phone and answer your question. I'm also going to leave time at the end to answer questions, so even if you've got something unrelated to what we're talking about today, or you just want to ask me anything about TouchStone or anything about anything I said, all questions are fair game. If there gets to be a lot of questions, then I'll email people directly if I can't get to them all at the end. But remember, anytime along the way, if you don't understand something, you have a question, just type me into the chat log and I'll try to pay attention to those, and then I'll also unmute people's phones if it seems appropriate. All right, so this begins the first of the 7-series training session. In this training session, we're going to talk about some of the basics of how TouchStone's organized. I'm going to go through just a quick overview of the home page here and remind everyone what that's about. But mostly what we're going to focus on is the 4 key functions. So I'm going to explain the basics of how to use the tools inside of TouchStone, but then also a bit about how to think about it strategically. So some best practices for going about building your 4 functions list. Then we're going to end with our system of the week, which is going to be on leadership and strategic planning, and there's a new process in the process library related to leadership. Okay, so this is the TouchStone home screen. You'll always know who is logged in because it's going to be here in the welcome screen. What you'll also see on your home page, if you've set it up, is the control panel setup. So these are give the employee or the user who's logged in access to their processes and gives them the ability to use their processes. If they have a managerial control panel, you're going to see this section here called Management Review, where the manager can go in and review the work the employees are doing. As we go through each of the 7 training sessions, I'm going to be highlighting how to use the control panel and management review if it makes sense in that session. At the end, the last, number 7, is on exclusively on how to use the control panel and management review. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen here, you're going to see Account Administration if you're an administrator. So if you're an employee on the line and you don't see this button on your TouchStone screen, it's because you're a user and not an administrator. So this center, the Administration Center, is where you can see the users that have been set up for the system. You can add new users. And basically, this is where you control the access to the various users, the type of access they have to TouchStone. To the right of Account Administration is the search feature. Once you've developed TouchStone to a certain degree, you're going to have quite a few processes, and it's common to kind of not remember where things are. You should, if your 4 functions is organized correctly, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you should be able to find things. But if you can't, then the search feature is a great way to do that. You just type in any text that is in the title and hit search all, or if you can hit the drop down and you search for something more specifically if you know what type of tool it is. I hit search here, and then it brings up everything that has that word in it. The user manual is, we're in the process of updating this, but a lot of the simple how-tos are right here for you to easily access. And then one more thing I want to point out is the Logout button, which is all the way to the right-hand corner of the screen here. TouchStone stays active for 5 hours with no activity. But once you start to type in it, then it becomes active again. So if you go home for the day, always remember to log out, because what can happen is you can come back to your computer, and if you haven't saved what's there, then TouchStone will time you out, and potentially you'll lose what you haven't saved. So just get into the habit of logging out. It's a good protocol with any web tool. We do make it active for 5 hours with no activity, so it kind of acts like software on your desktop. So so you can log in the middle of the day and then use it without it timing out on you in an hour. So, but just remember to log out. It's a good kind of way to make sure that nobody can get into your account if it's sitting open on your screen, or if you get timed out and haven't saved something. Okay, let's go to the 4 key functions. So what happens in the 4 functions is you have a list of all of the processes in your business. If you haven't gone through the effort of creating this master list in the 4 functions, then I really recommend that you do that. Sometimes people will get their account and just start documenting a few processes, or focus maybe on one department or one of the key functions and not the others. And what happens when you do that is you don't get a holistic view of everything. And you may start listing things in here which don't belong in getting the business, and maybe they're really related to finance. And you're putting them inside of processes that are in getting the business just because you haven't even thought about this area yet. So there's sometimes redundancies, but more importantly, you kind of miss the connections between things, and you miss the value of looking at everything and seeing how it relates to everything else. All of these 4 functions are dependent upon each other, every single one. So if you focus on only one, you're going to miss those connections and the dependency of one process on another. When you select one of the 4 key functions, it takes you to this screen. This is where the processes are listed. So I can always see that we're in getting the business because I can see it up here in black. These 3 boxes allow you to toggle back and forth between any of the 4 key functions. You can always go back here and click directly on what you want to be on, but you can also click here to get there. So now we're in running the business, and I know because it's right here. So if you, for whatever reason, don't like this getting, doing, guiding, running terminology, and you want to change it to something that's more familiar to you, you can easily do that by hitting this little black edit pencil here, and then you can delete this title and put in a title of your own. Some people really love the getting, doing, guiding, running. It's like a different way of kind of viewing things, but other people it's confusing. You keep forgetting, well, what should be in running? What should be in guiding? If you're struggling with that at all, then change it. This is our terminology. It doesn't have to be yours, and TouchStone's flexible so that you can kind of make it your own. What I would recommend is that you try to keep the themes the same. So keep this kind of higher level strategy, managerial processes, keep this some amount of marketing and advertising, sales, operations, admin, finance. If you don't, and you kind of segment it further from there, you're going to kind of run out of functions. So like you wouldn't want to call this sales and then call this advertising, because then you're going to have nowhere for your operations. When you click on one of the 4 key functions, the first thing you'll notice are what we call sub-functions, and that are these little black titles here. These sub-functions are the categories of work within this function. So TouchStone works like an outline, the 4 key function does. This is the uppermost area, then we drill down and we see sub-areas or sub-functions, like within running the business, IT, finance, financial management, human resources, admin. So these are the categories of work within this function. Then we have the processes listed inside of each of the sub-functions. So use your sub-functions to group your processes. Think of the subject areas within your business and build sub-functions that represent that. In the core 4 key functions, it's best to think in categories of work or subject areas. Try to steer away from thinking about people and who does what. So you wouldn't want to have a sub-function called the bookkeeper or IT manager. You wouldn't want that. You'd want to think of more in a subject area. We get to who does what over here on the organization chart. There's something practical and beneficial about thinking about things in subject areas and with a structure rather than people and who does what. And the 4 key functions is about that. It's about not people and personalities and who's good at what. It's about, practically speaking, what are the processes necessary to move the business forward. So to build sub-functions, you just go right up here to the sub-function tab. And if I hover over this, you can add sub-functions here. I can edit the ones that exist. I can delete sub-functions, and I can reorder them. The sub-functions, when you reorder them, they toggle back and forth. So if I move this one up and this one down, it's just going to go left to right, and then you save. So then you'll see these two flipped. So they go back and forth and back and forth. I kind of feel like the more sub-functions, the better, because it helps you to find things. It helps you to see what's there. So this goes back to what I was saying about the search feature. Have enough sub-functions so that you can see categories. I think if you have maybe 4 processes, then it deserves a sub-function, if you could make sense of that as a category of work. If it's less than 4, if it's like 1 or 2, then you may be going too far with the categorizing of things. What you'll find is that our categories, or our sub-functions that were in your account when you started it, can be a good place to begin. In the guiding the business area, usually you're going to have, and this is for every business, it's not industry specific in guiding the business. You need some kind of strategic sub-function or strategy. A training one is probably good here. Some people put the training in management, but if you want to isolate this and call it training processes, you can have that one in here. Employee management, that's also a vital one. Even if you have no employees and you're all subcontractors, you still need subcontractor management, some way of working with your subcontractors. And then board of directors or board of advisors. Even if you're not big enough to have a board of directors, this is where the entrepreneur lives in you. This is where you work on your business. So having a board of directors with some amount of processes there where you kind of think strategically about your business at least once a year is a good idea. So inside of guiding the business, these are the typical ones that I see, and I think without a doubt it works for every industry. Getting the business is also pretty similar when it comes to sub-functions in all businesses. Need some way of getting new business in the door, so lead generation or advertising. Sales, so once the lead has been generated, what are the processes for converting those leads into sales? So advertising and sales, sometimes people call it lead generation, lead conversion. Marketing strategy, this is something that's often forgotten in small businesses, but it's a good thing to think about and have. Strategically, how are you going to define yourself? Who's your target market? So have a few strategic processes on how you work with marketing. And then sales management, this is another common one inside of as a sub-function. If you sell multiple things, so say you have a commercial and a residential division, and those two things are advertised and sold differently, then you may want to have a advertising hyphen commercial, and then advertising hyphen residential. And then maybe you have an advertising general sub-function where you put other processes that are related to both. Also in running the business, the sub-functions are pretty similar from industry to industry. There's generally needs to be some kind of finance sub-function. So this is the basic kind of bookkeeping procedures or processes. Then financial management, which is for the higher level things, cash flow planning, profit sharing, budgeting. IT is another common sub-function. Human resources, a definite must. And then administration. So these are all of the office procedures or the support for the entire company. When we get to doing the business, this is where it kind of gets defined by industry. So here you want to think about what you do. If you're in a production company, a service business, retail, distribution, manufacturing, all of these industries, your operations is going to look a little different from depending on that industry. So think about the categories of work within what you deliver. So everyone for the most part, should have a customer satisfaction or client service sub-function. This is one that I see commonly in all industries. If you deal with materials, maybe you have a material control or a warehouse sub-function. Production management or operations management or service management. So these are the processes for how you manage your operations. Service delivery if you're a service business. So think about your categories of work within your operations and then start to construct your sub-functions. Once you're happy with your sub-functions, or based on what I'm saying now, maybe you want to go back and recategorize things. Everything is drag and drop on the screen, so you can pull things from one function to another, one sub-function to another pretty easily. If you want to take something out of one function altogether and move it into another, so we're in doing right now. If we wanted to take something out of doing and move it into getting, that's easy too. You just take the process, pull it up to this box and let go. And now TouchStone's showing me all the sub-functions within getting the business. So I have to choose which one to put it into, and then I hit move. So even if you've put things in the wrong sub-functions or the wrong functions altogether, it's easy to move them around and reorganize. When you're in the process of documenting, I like to put these into order of priority. You can do that on the job descriptions too, but it's kind of nice to do it here. So if I'm done with these, they're black, I've turned them black, so I can move them down out of the way for now. The blue ones have been started, there's something in them, so I can leave these at the top and say this one's more important than that one, and then put the ones that haven't been started in order of priority. And then as you document it, go to that process, it's completed, drag this one down, and then the most important always stays at the top. So that's one way of thinking about it if you're in the middle of documenting. If you're done with the documentation, then you can put them in workflow order, you can put them in in alphabetical order. It's kind of up to you at that point. Someone's asking, why are some blue and why are some black? Why some are checked and not? So the question is about the color coding. So there's a legend right here that kind of explains to you what the color coding's about. But it's basically showing you the status of your process. So red right here means there's nothing in it. So if I click on this process and I'm over here, that this is blank. In a sense, the documentation has not been started for this. It's just a title and objective right now. So everything that's red, there's nothing inside of it. It's just a title. The minute you start to build a process, I'm going to put a work plan in here. So I put in a work plan. I hit create. Now I've started the documentation for this. So I'm going to begin to add tasks and build it. Now if we go back and look here, you're going to notice this process is blue now. So blue means there's something in it. It's not done yet, but somebody's working on it. The documentation has been started. There's a tool in it. There's an uploaded file. There's some documentation or some process tool has been started. When I'm finished with the documentation, I select it, and then I hit this box, process documentation completed. So this has been vetted, it's been tested, it's been implemented, it's ready to go. I'm done with it. Then I go back here and you'll see it's been turned black with a check mark. The check mark is just like, yay, you're done. That's all it means. So then, I could put this down with the others. If we've decided that the loss control is too high and we need to innovate this process. So we've been tracking our numbers and it's just gotten ridiculous how many returns there are and how much waste there is. So I could go to this process and say, okay, this isn't working. I'm going to uncheck this. Let's keep working on it. Then if we go back, you'll see it's blue again. So just because you mark something as black doesn't mean that you can't go and change it. And that's very common when you're innovating something and you want to decide that it's not done yet. So don't mark anything complete until you're absolutely sure it's done. There's this little button here called public. It's a P. And I don't think I have it. Oh, here's one. This has been marked as public, client satisfaction. When I go and mark this as complete, it shows up more like a just a green check mark right here. What that means is that process has been put in the public folder. So this is the public folder right here. And this is a place where you want to put processes that are company-wide information. So they're the kind of things that every employee needs to have access to and needs to use. They're not going to be on one or two people's job descriptions. They're company-wide, need to be accessible by everyone. So you're going to see things like HR things. This is the new employee introduction and all the paperwork and things that go along with that. So even after you've been an employee for a year, you may still want to look at these things, employee handbook, communications, health and safety. So that's what that little, we're going to talk more about this as we go on, but that's what that little, the P insignia means. So once you've got your sub-functions set and you're happy with those, then start adding processes. So how you add a process is you go right here, add new process, you put in the name, and then you tell TouchStone what sub-function it goes into. So as easy as that. So I think everyone at this point, adding a process is a no-brainer. It's very easy to do. The question is, how do we decide what processes to add? How do you know how to title things? How do you know what a process is? So this is something that to a certain degree it can be boilerplate, or there's going to be best practices for this. So one place to look is in our library up here. So every function has a library. This is called the General Process Library. And there are a listing of just common processes related to doing the business in this example. So some of these are grayed out because I already have them in this demo account, but these ones that are blue I can add. If you hover over the title, it tells you what the objective is. So the library can give you some examples, some ideas. The libraries are very helpful in these 4 functions, or 3 functions, in getting, guiding, and running, because like I said before, these 3 areas of any business are pretty similar. There will be some differences, probably over here mostly, but for the most part, what works for one business works for another. It's here where it gets a little tricky because it's by industry. So when you're thinking about your processes, here's a few ideas. Go to the library and utilize that as best you can. Then think about the work that happens. So there are tasks that happen, and then there's a way of defining those tasks. So when I'm paying bills, there are a lot of activities, a lot of tasks related to paying bills. All of that combined, the result is the bills are getting paid. So think about name your processes based on the overall what's happening. So within TouchStone, you can have multiple work plans, like over here. So for those of you who don't know, a work plan is a step-by-step set of instructions on how to do the work. This is the documentation. This is the heart of all of it. So inside of the 4 key functions, and we can see from this breadcrumb trail, I always kind of remind you of the outline of the 4 functions. We're 4 key functions. We're in running the business. We're in the finance sub-function. We're in the accounts payable process. And then here are all the different activities that happen related to accounts payable. We make check deposits. We create invoices. We do special invoices. We pay things with credit cards or HCS payments. We make check payments. We deposit things. So think about what happens related to that process, the accounts payable process. If sometimes processes will only have 1 work plan in them, but oftentimes they have multiple work plans in them. So here, collections. This is, we can always see the objective, collect all past due money before 90 days. There's 1 work plan here on collecting accounts receivables. There are other tools, like there's some scripts and there's uploaded files and letters that are sent out, but there's just 1 work plan. So sometimes you'll just have 1 work plan, which will define the tasks. Other times there'll be multiple work plans, like in accounts payable, all these different activities. So there's a bit of creativity that needs to go on when you're defining your processes. You want to think, what is the work that happens? Name that as a process title. And then think about, are there multiple workflows? Are there multiple things that happen related to this? Now, I could have made 6 processes on the 4 functions list. One called check deposits, one invoices, one special invoices. I could have done that, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. What it does, though, is it makes your 4 functions list huge. Because you can see if I took all 6 work plans out of those and made those processes, then I'm going to have 6 more in this finance area. So I would recommend combining things when it makes sense. So think about the main activity, name that as the process, and then if there are sub-things that happen, then define those as work plans. Recruiting is another good example of that. So here's recruiting. There's a lot to recruiting. There's preparing, putting in ads. So we have one process called recruiting, and everything related to how to recruit employees is within that. We have one called interviewing, and everything related to how to interview is inside of this. So this is one technique to use. Now think about the main thing that's happening, the main process, and then define other work plans within it for the different workflows that occur. Here's kind of a higher level thought right here. A lot of businesses have other software that they use to help run their businesses. So you have CRMs, customer relationship management software, where you're tracking leads and sales appointments and all of that good stuff. TouchStone doesn't do all that. It's not a CRM. It doesn't have a calendar or things like that. So a CRM is necessary for most businesses. You have an accounting program like QuickBooks or whatever you're using. You may have a production management software, depending on the business that you have. You may have an inventory control software. So all of these different software programs are essential for the running of a small business. TouchStone holds the standard operating procedures for those pieces of software that you use or other web tools. So you may have a situation like this, or this is a good thing to do for your other software programs. So under IT here, I've got CRM how-tos. And then within this, I kind of highlight the basic things, the rudimentary things that happen regarding the CRM, how to enter leads, how to run reports. Sometimes these work plans, I don't know if I have this example now, sometimes these work plans can be screenshots and little how-tos for that area, like this is. If your software or your web tool has great tutorials, like online even, then you can make hyperlinks to those different tutorials. What I see oftentimes is that we all use these software programs in the way that they were designed to a certain degree, but then we kind of make customizations and change things based on how you do it in your business. So you may be able to utilize those tutorials, but then you may also have to do something like this, where you do screenshots and say, this is how we do it. And then in any process throughout the business where someone has to enter leads into the CRM, we just hyperlink to this. So when you do new employee training, you can train them in everything, but then on a day-to-day basis, when someone kind of forgets how to enter a lead in or doesn't know where to do that or how, there's a link right to this work plan. So we're not duplicating this all, the path of it inside of numerous processes. We're just hyperlinking this work plan. Trying to read someone's question. Okay, let's go back. So again, think about your process titles and enter them. Default to a clear, specific title. So you'll notice here I've got accounts payable, collections, contracts. So we're identifying it with a title. It's not a sentence, it's not a phrase, it's not a description of anything. It's a clear, specific title. So oftentimes I'll be in people's TouchStone accounts and I'll see that they've got, listed sentences which are describing the process as opposed to naming it. It's a much cleaner way to do it, to just name it. So accounts payable, if you have something inside more to say about that, which you should, put it in the objective. So sometimes I'll see this right here as the title. Ensure all company bills are paid on time and in the company's interest. Well, that's not a title. That's a description. So your titles, your process titles, should be 2-3 words at the most. Also remember to title every word. Sometimes I'll see, accounts with a capital A and then payable all lowercase. If you like that, then, that's totally up to you. But then just make sure everybody's doing it that way. So when you're documenting in general, you want to think of like the basic protocols for how you want your employees to be doing it and how you're going to do it. If you just kind of like all caps and someone else likes all lowercase, well, you need to decide what's going to be the way. And so sometimes it's easier to kind of default to the general way it's usually done, which is a title is the first letter of every word is capitalized. Well, let's look at a few more examples. So you'll notice with these as well, referral development, online yellow pages, client retention, warm lead selling, appointment. So think about short, specific titles. This is actually a problem because you don't want to put process at the end of your titles because otherwise you do that for every title, right? Appointment process. Product and service knowledge-based process, welcome package process. Well, that's just redundant over time. So if you started doing it that way, just delete the word process. It just becomes redundant. Also, think of the subject first and the verb or the adjective second. So we wouldn't want to call this developing referrals. We wouldn't want to see, this is actually wrong too. Maximizing client retention. Think of the subject first. So here's the reason. If you think of the subject first, then when your eye is scanning through things or you're thinking, where is the referral process? You're not going to be thinking development first. You're going to be thinking referral first. If you search for referral here, whether the verb or the adjective's in the front or not, you're still going to find it in the search. But it's just another thing to be thinking about. It's easier to find things. So the subject's first and the verb or the action the second. So list your process titles. So let's talk about some strategic ways to go about this for those of you who don't have this done yet. One way is to get your people involved. So if you have a larger company, even if you've got 2, 3, 5, 10 or more employees, think about getting your people involved. Get them introduced to TouchStone. Get them starting to think about this idea of process and what it means. I think process documentation gets a bad rap with employees because it's positioned in the wrong way, and it's not backed up by management and by leadership, which I'm going to talk about towards the end. So get your employees involved. There's a tool here in Guiding the Business called Process List Development. It's right here. It's in the library, but I've got it in my system right here. And we've got these activity trackers here. So you can literally send these out to your employees and say, just track what you do every day for 2 days or 3 days. And then you're going to get this list of the basics of what they do. And tell them that you're not doing this to kind of analyze how they're spending their time, which isn't a bad idea, by the way, but open it up and say, this is about us working strategically on the business, thinking about what we do. We really need help. We're going to go through this effort of documenting our processes, and we need your help to define what are the processes. So you can use these activity trackers if you like. You can, I'll show you the sample one right here. You can simply send an email out and say, give me a list of what you do. That's valuable in itself. But this is the activity tracker. This is an example of one. People think of these activities, the tasks that they do, but really they're related to a system, or this should say process, the same thing. So this is the process, the benefits process. And we're doing 401k, we're doing medical, we're doing dental. So these are all tasks that they're thinking that they're doing, but really it's all about the benefits process. So doing these activity trackers can be helpful because then you get 2 results. You get down on paper what they know, things that you may not know, and then you also start to get them actively involved in in starting to document their processes. So that's one way. Another way would be to sit, if you have people in these 4 areas, sit the 4 of you, or however many there are, have TouchStone open on a screen on the wall. Don't get big pieces of paper out and start listing. The best way is to start to adopt to the environment of TouchStone, which is paperless, and it's designed in a certain way. So if you start scratching things out on paper, you're creating another step to really getting it done. So have TouchStone open on the screen, go to one of the functions and say, all right, let's start thinking about what happens. What do we do? In getting the business, it's easy to start with workflow, because you can think, how do we generate leads? What are we doing now? And start listing those things. Then think, what do we want to be doing? So after you think about what is going on now, think about what are we going to do in the next year or so, and identify those things. Then start to think, okay, the lead comes in from this source. What's the next thing that happens? Well, it gets qualified, okay? Then it gets entered into the system. Okay, so we need a lead qualification process. Then we need an entering the lead into the system and scheduling it for an appointment process. Then we need a sales process, or if it's a transactional sale, we need a transactional sale process. Then we need follow-up. Then we need contracts. So think about these various steps. Once there's a contract, well, then it goes here to doing. What's the first step? A new job comes in. What do we do first? What do we do second? What do we do third? Then it's got to get billed at some point. So once it gets starting to be serviced, then how does it hit finance and administration? So you can think about this kind of in workflow order if that helps you as well. This effort of identifying your processes can take some time, and it's a bit like, emptying out a messy garage. You have to kind of lay it all out and then put it back into categories, but it's time well spent because you actually maybe can see for the first time ever what is the structure of your business. This little arrow, I'm going to be showing you this as we go through the different sessions. This is the export arrow. So here you can print things, you can export to Word, to a PDF or email, and what in this example, what it's going to do is print the 4 functions screen here. What else can I show you? A couple other things. We're going to be talking extensively about the process tools page and how to document and how to use these tools, but one thing I want to show you now is if you put a work plan, say, inside of a process, and then you decide, well, let's change the idea. Let's say that you've decided you want to take this accounts payable process and combine it with another process. So based on what I've said about combining things or not, you want to combine 2 processes. All you need to do is go to one process, and you can take all the tools out of it and move them into another. So if you've built things inside of one process, you can easily move them out into another. So you just choose the tool you want to move, and you go right here to this Move Process tool, and you hit drop down here. And now I'm looking at all the sub-functions from the 4 functions list. So in a sense, I'm searching for the process I want to move this into, this work plan. So I go to Finance, and now I see all the processes available. I choose the one I want to move it into, and I hit Save. Well, I didn't actually move it, but that's what would happen. So you can take all these tools out and move them from one to another. So if you've built your 4 functions list and you want to change or move things around, it's super easy in TouchStone. And I'm pointing this out, too, because don't be afraid to jump in and just do it. There's nothing you're going to mess up or do wrong. Just get in there and start doing it. And then if you decide later things need to be shifted or moved around, then you can easily do that. Before we get on to the system of the week, I just want to point out one kind of more higher level thing. For those of you who have developed TouchStone to a certain point, you know that through this organization chart, you link processes to job descriptions. So each box on this chart, all of the processes that this position is accountable for are listed. So that's how these 2 tools come together. We've got this master list over here in the 4 functions. We've got org chart, which is a picture of all the positions. and then we marry the two, we link them together by taking all the processes that each position on the org chart is accountable for and linking them to that box, which creates what we call a job description. So this becomes this master list of all the processes that the sales and marketing manager is accountable for. Now, processes can be linked to more than one position. So a lot of times I'm asked, well, what happens when there is a work plan inside of one process that one person does and there's another work plan that another person does? Well, the simple answer is you link that process to both of those positions. So let's go back here with that thought in mind. So let's say that we have we have a bookkeeper and we have an accounting assistant. And the bookkeeper does these 3 work plans and the accounting assistant does these 3. One idea is that they're all inside of here and we just link this to both of their job descriptions. In the title you can put bookkeeper or you can put accounting assistant if you like. So that's one way. You link them to both job descriptions. When you don't want to do that is if this work is confidential and only the bookkeeper should be able to see it and use it. And this work, only the accounting assistant should be able to use it and see it. They shouldn't see, for whatever confidential reason, the accounting assistant shouldn't see how the work is done. If that's the case, then you'd want to break this apart and make it 2 processes. And put these work plans in one and these in another, and then link one to the bookkeeper and one to the accounting assistant. If it's, on the other hand, if it's useful for the 2 of them to see what the others are doing, then keep them all in one and just link that process to both. So it's a bit of a judgment call, but a factor that you want to consider is what's going to happen over here on the org chart. So as you're identifying the process titles, do think about that. Think ahead a little bit and say, well, I'm going to link this to one position or another on the org chart, so how is it going to be best structured? Okay. So let's talk about the process of the week. So we have a lot of new processes in our library, and as we go through, we're always adding new processes, first of all, so you should know that, to go back and check the library. And then in these sessions, I'm going to highlight some of our new processes. So this is actually the new process. It's called Key Performance Indicators. So what key performance indicators are they are measurements of your business, basically, of departments, of people, of activities. They're measurements. So these key performance indicators, or they're called key strategic indicators, or people call them different things, but basically they're a metric or a measurement of how something is, the result of something. So this process gives you a few examples, but then it has this form in it, which allows you to kind of create and then ultimately measure your key business indicators. So I'm going to backtrack for a minute. Before you can get here to your key performance indicators, you really need to think about your strategic plan, where it is your business is going, what you want to be producing, what are your key performance indicators, what is the best version of that. So you can't jump right into here before kind of thinking about your vision and where you're going. So there's this process and this one that go together that are both in the library. So strategic target development is about developing your strategic plan, really. And I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, and you may already have a strategic plan. But if you don't, just consider this. Consider walking through this process, taking a couple hours to just think about what are your target goals. So we've got examples, we've got questionnaires, we've got ways for you to create it. So a strategic target is just basically a 1 or 2 page document which shows the essence of your dream. It's the essence of where you want to be, what you want to do, where you're going to go. These goals in here, when achieved, will throw off certain numbers, which are your key strategic indicators. So if we have a company where there is everyone feels good about what and employees are satisfied, well then a key strategic indicator should be employee satisfaction. And our goal should be, 90% of employees are satisfied. So that's just an example. But even a simpler one is, if we want to get to $2 billion in revenue, where are we now? And what percentage increase do we have to have over this year to get closer to that so that we can get there in 5 years? So think about your strategic target, what your vision is. Your business needs a dream. It needs a vision. And I'm not saying this just to try to motivate you. I'm saying it because it is the thing that's going to make your TouchStone account and your processes successful. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and he does, if you don't know him, he's a great teacher on leadership. But this is one of his quotes that I saw the other day. Dr. King gave a "I have a dream" speech, not a "I have a plan" speech. So think about the difference. Do you just have a plan with a set of goals, or do you really have a dream that you follow up with passion that you can get everyone behind? So develop a strategic target. That will lead you to your key performance indicators. So what the idea of the key performance indicators are, first you identify them, you say what they are, and don't make 50,000, do 3 or 4 per department. So you notice here I've got key performance indicators for sales and marketing, for advertising, and if you have a CRM, you could probably just, hopefully if it's a good CRM, you can run a report of these things. So for sales, we want our conversion rate to be 50%. That means every lead that gets taken through the sales process, 50% of them sign up. So think about what your version of that is. What is your target result? Think back to your strategic target. So what does the conversion rate need to be for you to achieve those goals? Think about your advertising, all the different advertising methods that you do. And this should come, if you're going to do it by lead source, that should be in TouchStone. So we should have a process for social media advertising and a process for referrals. So how many leads were generated? Think about operationally. Some of you have operations software which can throw these numbers for you, and some of you don't. But if you don't, even if you do, the idea is that you measure it and you think about it. So productivity, returns, defects, retention. Again, it depends on your industry, but think about what are the key indicators for your business. Every business has these. Every business has that one number. It's a list of numbers. Think about it like this. If you were away from your business, you're off on a beach somewhere relaxing, and you could only have 5 numbers for every department that would tell you if your business was on track or not, which 5 numbers would you want? What would tell you? Those numbers are what you need to keep your eyes on, and those numbers are what you want to teach your managers, your people, to keep their eyes on. Motivate them, inspire them to keep their eyes on them. Human resources, this is something that's often neglected. Things like employee turnover, employee training. How many of your employees have gotten a thorough training? Employee morale. So there's we broke this up into tangible and intangible. So here I'm going to show you a trick. When you download this process, there's just going to be one form in it. All of these won't be here. But if you want to make multiple copies so you can do this by department, here's a trick way to do it. Go up here to the archive. So this is a new feature that we implemented a few months ago. Click the archive, say OK. So basically, TouchStone's taken a copy of this and thrown it into the archive. And then I go View Archive, hit the drop down, go to Form, because that's what I archived, and there it is. Hit Restore. Now I've got another copy of this. See, now there's 2 copies. So you're not really supposed to copy things like that in TouchStone, because we do that on purpose so you don't make duplicates when it's not necessary, because duplicates aren't good. But with a form like this, it makes more sense, right, because you want a form for every department. So that's a way to get, a multiple copy of something inside of TouchStone. I'm going to delete this one for now. So think about each of your key areas and just come up with 1 or 2 indicators, 5 at the most. What are these prime examples of when you're successful and how? Then, here's the best part about it. If you have an indicator that you don't like, so let's go back here. Let's say your conversion rate is 50%. This is your sales rate. And you're measuring that. You and your manager are looking at it. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to get every percentage right. So just estimate it if you have to, but get to a sense of what it is. Then, if you don't like it, then here's where process documentation comes in. Think about, what do we need to do to improve that conversion rate? That would take you right back inside of TouchStone, right to here, right to your sales processes. What is not working here? This is real power. We're not just going to sit around and complain it's not working and then blame each other for it. Let's look at the sales process. Where are we losing people? How could it be better? So you can essentially take every indicator, back it back to the process that's creating that number and improve it. That's why this is so cool. So download this process and think about it. It's for you to customize and make your own. I'm just going to throw one more Simon Sinek thing at you because I love him. Look at this cartoon. So how this relates to process documentation is I talk to TouchStone business owners, and oftentimes they say to me, how can I get this done as quick as possible? How can I hire someone and do it all until it's done? I'm so frustrated my employees aren't doing it. You need to do it. You're the leader. So build the indicators. Use them. Document a process. Share it with people. Be the example. Because if you want to have power over your business and you want to inspire your people to do the same, to use the processes, then you need to use them. Without a doubt, when a TouchStone user quits and we call them and say, hey, what happened? They say, well, nobody's using it. It's because they're not using it. So, look in the mirror and take control of your business. Any questions? No? Okay, I think I've scared everyone. Next week, we are going to talk about organization strategy. So this will be a cool session. I always like this one. I'm going to talk about the basics of using the organization chart. But then we're also going to talk about good organization structure, what it means to build a functional chart, a strategic chart, and more importantly, how to use it for the long term. It's not just it's done. You can use this as a way to kind of strategize and develop and understand your business. So that will be next week, organization chart and organization strategy. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.